Hello and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Founder, the podcast that tells the real stories of the people who make recruitment agency growth possible. I go straight to the source to discover the impact of great strategic partnerships between founders and their leadership teams and uncover why bringing in the right leadership team is crucial for the founder to build the business they want. We discuss what it takes to build a fulfilling career in agency without necessarily being a founder yourself and share the successes of the key people that, alongside the founder, make the agency work. It's unfiltered, honest and unscripted and gives a real insight into the people that make the agency work beyond the founder. So I'm delighted to say that today's guest on the Beyond the Founder podcast is Graham Cosgrave, who is one of the directors of MatchMedics. They place doctors on a permanent basis into all the hospitals around Ireland with potential plans to grow that. I'm really excited for this one because Graham's story is inspirational. He started off his recruitment career in in-house recruitment, which is obviously a very unusual route and path to take. He then moved into agency and despite opportunities that presented themselves elsewhere, stuck by his guns and understood what he wanted to achieve in his career. He eventually joined his now business MatchMedics as a recruiter and has worked his way up to being a shareholder and a director. He's a massive part of the business. He's intrinsically involved in the decision-making processes and what they do. He's a really, really nice guy. Graham's impressive. He's genuine. He's authentic. And he just is one of those guys. And he goes to show exactly what can be achieved and how you can have a fantastic career in recruitment without necessarily being a founder yourself. So let's go straight to it. How are we doing? Thanks very much for coming on to Beyond the Founder.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Paul.
So whereabouts in the world are you?
I'm in Greystones in County Wicklow in Ireland.
So yeah, because you were away last week. You were at a conference last week, were you?
Yeah, I was down in Killarney in County Kerry at our Irish Emergency Medicine conference, annual conference.
Forgive my surname, but my family are all from Kerry. I think you know that. So it's a beautiful part of the world. I love it.
Yes, yeah. Slightly biased you are, Paul, but yeah, no, it is. I can't deny it. It's an incredible part of the country.
Fantastic. And Graham, look, thanks so much for coming on. For those of you who don't know you, can you just give us a quick minute or two on who you are, what you do and whatnot?
Yeah. So my name is Graham. I'm one of the directors of MatchMedics, who are based here in Ireland, and our sole focus is recruiting doctors. So we bring doctors from all across the world to work in the public and private sector here in Ireland.
Just to set a bit of context, Graham, we met in the original Hoxo Boardroom last April, about 6-7 months ago. And it was a founder's boardroom, and we were in there. I remember looking at you and listening to you and thinking, wow, this guy's impressive. I wonder what he does. You know, as a founder, he's on the ball, he's switched on, he's asking the right questions. And you're thinking, yeah, I'd like to get to know you a bit more. And as we started talking more, and I discovered actually you're a shareholder in the business and you're the MD, but you weren't the founder. I was thinking, wow, that's incredible how you can be so impressive, so knowledgeable and so driven by what you're doing. And yet you didn't actually found the business. So I thought, I'd love to get you on this show. And as you know, we've had this conversation. There's no script here. What I'd like to do is just for you to give people your story, a bit of a background, how you got into recruitment, how you ended up in MatchMedics, what it was like beforehand, and just sort of chart your journey. Are you okay just to give us a bit of an overview and talk that through?
Go to the beginning. I studied human resources in National College of Ireland. That's in Dublin city centre. My first paid job out of university was an in-house recruitment job. But it was a mix of HR and a mix of recruitment. And I'll be honest, Paul, I hated the HR side of things. It's the contracts, it's the references, it's all that nonsense that I just, even to today don't have the stomach for. But the element of the job that I did really enjoy was a telecoms startup, was the company I was working with at the time. And they're all across the world. So I was recruiting salespeople in the Middle East, in the US, in all across Europe, and then some tech people in Dublin. And that element of the job I really, really gravitated towards. So following that, and this is where I first came across my current co-director, Richard Morton, was way back when, well over 12 years now, I applied to two recruitment grad programs, one with TTM Healthcare, which is where Richard started his journey, and the other with Sigmar Recruitment. Sigmar, very generalist recruitment, TTM, very much within the healthcare space, and still one of the bigger players in the market. And biasly speaking, coming from Dublin myself, I went with the Dublin agency as opposed to the agency based in County Clare, where Richard is from. So our first attempt at coming together didn't happen. So I pursued the more generous recruitment grad program in Sigmar in Dublin as a starter.
You went, so that's quite, and so you went, your first entry into recruitment was in an in-house role. So
Yeah.
that's quite unusual, isn't it? You know, normally that's where you go post-agency. So it must be a slightly different grounding, slightly different training from a process perspective and what you learn.
Yeah, certainly the process perspective, definitely the idea that every job has to be filled was also very much ingrained into me there. And you know, much more of a behind the scenes look at what actually goes into the entire recruitment process and what things could be done perhaps better. Now, having that knowledge, and now, you know, whatever 12, 13 years into my career, knowing what goes on behind the scenes when the hiring manager is looking at that CV that you are chasing up on. So I think there's a lot to learn I've learned across my entire journey throughout recruitment.
That's invaluable, Graham. That's invaluable. Sorry, because you understand the psyche of a hiring manager before you even start an agency recruitment and what they're going through. So you can understand what's going on, and you can add value straight away that other recruiters, certainly entry level, couldn't do. So that must have been really interesting. It was really useful for you.
Yeah, it certainly was at the time. Yeah, but like I said, it wasn't the in-house piece. The pace of in-house was also just wasn't my cup of tea. So then jumped into the Sigmar grad training program and said no to Richard's, similar offering, but just down in County Clare. So worked there for about a year or so and got to grips with the real basics of agency recruitment. And then that's when, following there, I found myself moving on to the healthcare space, but again in Dublin with another now competitor of ours on the contractor side of things. So I was in the contractor doctor space for close to 4 years at that point. And again, got a knock at the door from Richard to say, fancy having a chat. And at that point, I didn't again. I foolishly said no.
It's a twice.
Then a number of months later, I went back to Richard, said, you know what, let's have a chat. That's where then it all began in terms of my involvement in MatchMedics.
Played hard to get. That's
Slightly, yeah. So that was a bit of a sort of a whistle stop tour in terms of my first part of my initial stages of my career there. But yeah, I definitely two things I can really take from that. One, you're dead right. I did play a little bit hard to get. Another, you know, I think you can't underestimate the value of your network, and that, yeah, maybe that opportunity wasn't right for you at that stage, but who knows later down the line how that contact could be of interest to you, depending on what stage you are to your career at that point. So I was glad to have that very initial experience with Richard, and we still fondly joke about it on a regular basis when we talk about our journey into recruitment.
And so take me back to your decision-making process, because that's, you know, you're being chased by someone who obviously sees something in you. You've got a career set understanding and a set plan in terms of how you're going to achieve it. Were you on your own at this point? Were you with your partner, or was it something you just head down, wanted to make your decisions for yourself?
No, so it was with my wife now, yeah. And she said it was a no-brainer. You know, the previous place I was in, loved the job, loved, you know, working directly with doctors, but the culture probably just wasn't a match for me. So, you know, I wanted to stay. And we've discussed this before, Paul. You know, recruiting doctors is quite a niche. There aren't too many places doing it. I wanted to stay in that space because I found I thought I'd found my own niche. Coming from also a family of doctors, my dad's a GP, my brother's a doctor, and I have a couple of cousins that are doctors. So there's something ingrained in me there that, this is an interest space for me. When the opportunity to join Richard came up, I just thought, I should rethink this and just have that conversation, meet him again, and see what the idea was at that point.
Where are we? What year is this? How long ago was it?
So I joined Richard in the MatchMedics team close to maybe 2016, 2017, I think.
What was the business like? Describe how the business was when you joined.
And Richard can correct me here now post podcast, but I think it was 6 or 7 months in its inception. At that point, it was Richard and another ambitious junior recruiter had joined much earlier on, who's looking at the nursing side of things, and they were in a small office in Castle Troy in County Limerick at the time, and I popped down to meet Richard to do some sort of brainstorming on how we could take this to the next level, and that's where we were at the time. At that stage, Richard and the other recruiter were looking at healthcare assistants, nurses, and doctors. And for probably the guts of the first 2 years since joining at that stage, we were still looking at those three strands. My primary focus was doctors still at that point, but then we quickly realized there's a lot of heavy lifting with healthcare assistants and nurses, and the return just wasn't worth the volume of work that went into it. So we decided at that point to switch focus solely on doctors. At that point, we rebranded, and now sticking to our current tagline, which is "We recruit doctors." So we just want to be specialists in that space.
It's interesting. So when he brought you in, obviously Richard had chased you down. It was an industry and a niche that you were dead set on. You understood where you wanted to be. You've got how much years experience at this point?
Probably in total in recruitment, I'd say the guts of 6 years or so. Yeah.
Did it not cross your mind at all to start on your own, create your own?
No, because and to be honest, and that's another thing. Purposely highlighted when we met up first in London that time with the Hoxo group, being the only Irishman in the room. One of the things I really took away from meeting up with the other guys within the group or within Hoxo is there's, I think, a lot more of hunger or entrepreneurial attitude perhaps within the recruitment space in the UK, because it's going for much longer, and there isn't as much of that, or it wasn't perhaps back at that time, much of that just try on your own. It certainly has changed quite a bit over the last couple of years here, where people have in Ireland that bit more confidence to just, I have my niche. But there's things I like about where I'm working right now, but there's things I know I could do it that bit better, and are running with it. Myself at that time, that wasn't in my mind. It was, let's move into perhaps somewhere a little bit more established where there is that framework there that you can start off from.
So the conversations you're having, was it a plan, or was it a part of the plan that you would get to sort of more senior within the business and much more involved?
Joined as a recruiter, just to look at the doctor's space, and then I think it just developed from there. We grew our team, and you'll and yourself and others will have this experience on that too. Some people stayed with us, some people moved on and parted ways, but as it stands right now, as of today, we've 20 people on our team now. We started out at 3, so it's quite a big leap that we've taken, and I guess we can attribute that to those who've stuck around. They know that it's a hard graft, even when you're your space and your specialty. It's still a hard graft to get that job across the line, that person into that interview, and then that offer across the line, and finally get them started and invoiced for. I guess we found people have varied levels of resilience to get them through that, and we myself and Richard have learned a heck of a lot through that journey of building that team of the type of people that we need on on the MatchMedics team.
Did you start automatically becoming a bit of a de facto number two, given the seniority, given the roles you were filling? Did that automatically happen, or was it?
And it's probably ignorant of me to answer that, but yeah, to a degree, yes, because I was the second person there that had that bit more knowledge and experience in the space. I knew the doctor's language, I knew the hospitals, I knew the clients, I knew the hospitals that probably had a greater need. And coming from a contractor space, our initial offering was, we want to provide a permanent, salaried, more cost-effective alternative to the expense of contractors that were dominating different departments in different hospitals across the country. And that worked quite well. Even factoring in our finder's fee, it was still cheaper to go with us as opposed to the alternative, costly hourly rate doctor that a lot of hospitals, the likes of, as I mentioned earlier before, the likes of Kerry, the more sort of regional areas, or Donegal perhaps, or other departments that have a challenging reputation, let's say, would historically struggle to get full-time permanent staff within the department. So they would naturally be the ones who would be more reliant on locums. So our alternative pitch there was, let's go out and find you good, reliable, salaried doctors that can come into the department for 12 months minimum. And we charge a finder for that, and there are places that, in some cases, unreliable, ad hoc based filled posts just to get a body in.
That's interesting. So you broke the mold. So you've created a situation where you're recruiting the best doctors from around the world, right, to come and work in Ireland. And rather than put them in on a temporary contract, take your margin, and then never fill part, they're never onboarded properly. They're always a temp. Create a model where you can follow the same process, but they're theirs. So they are fully ingrained in the business. They've got a career. So when you're getting them to relocate, they're relocating for a permanent role. They're relocating for a career. So they must obviously want to be there. That a much more difficult sell with the client, the hospitals, because it's selling for temp is one thing. You've got an urgent requirement, right? But getting a permanent requisition is often a bit more challenging from a budget perspective. Have you found that?
It is definitely at times, and they still seem, maybe you've had experiences yourself, Paul, they still seem for us still quite illogical. Hospital might struggle to get let's say for a salaried contractor or salaried hire for 12 months, they might struggle to get approval for that 12 months. Yet they could get an extortionately expensive contractor in for that time.
Exactly.
They couldn't get approval for the cheaper alternative being that salaried spot. It's just
it's a permanent fix. It's a fixed cost, isn't it? So that's all about how it's accounted. It's crazy.
Yeah, the mind boggles, but there's plenty of those within our space, so it just keeps us interested. I guess that's better.
Today's episode is proudly brought to you by our sponsors, Coral Coach. So, do you get stressed by spiky revenue patterns? Want to offer your clients more? To create forecastable cash flow to cover operating costs and to build the ultimate asset? Well, Coral Coach are a coaching company with a difference. The leaders also run their own highly successful contract business, and they have captured their success formula and turned it into a hands-on, simple coaching program. Working with them, you'll get real results in real time, and a recruiter on their current program called 6 permanent vacancies and 1 contract vacancy in their first week. They're currently offering 2024 prices for their 2025 programs, and spaces are going fast. So please reach out direct for a discovery call, quoting BTF10 for a 10% discount. In terms of your progression, this is excellent. So you're doing well, you're billing, you're growing out a team. I take it at this point you're getting more involved in the hiring in terms of, were you involved in the strategic side of it as well, in terms of how to make those decisions to not do temp, to do the perm, and which geographies to target and client relationship? How involved?
And again, I give I owe a lot of credit to Richard in that he gave me free rein for a large part of what I was doing, and again that was up to I had to deliver. And I'll admit, the first couple of years were tough, were challenging. It was a case of us getting our names out there. I've spent my Opal course, that was my good friend. I spent plenty of times driving up and down the country, meeting the manpower, meeting HR heads, and then, in time meeting our own recruits and meeting hiring consultants. And we're big on different language within MatchMedics. So one word we're big on is ambassadors. So that's the hiring consultants, the head of the department, that person who is impacted by that. We're big on meeting them in person, because just building that relationship. You can't recreate that by phone or by email. That's why I love going to conferences too, because you get to meet them in the flesh. You get to find out what their challenges are. You get to find out what the ideal profile for them is, and then also find out, how can we best serve them, and what skills they are specifically looking for.
Interesting, because now I've got to know you, and I've seen your podcasts, and I've watched your story and your journey, and plus we talk as well. One thing that comes across, or two things that come across really clearly about you, and I'll ask about the DNA of the business shortly, but you're massive on quality of service. You seem to take a real pride in what you deliver, and B, you're very, very relationship driven. It's about making sure that the relationships you're fostering and whatnot are really genuine, but you're also really keen to learn. You always ask questions, and you're always progressing and developing, and even of people in the boardroom. And that's one thing that struck me. Wow, he's asking such great questions, some structured question. Where does that come from? Is that come from Richard from the top down? Is that something that you've all just naturally come together to work? Because it's not easy to achieve. What you're doing is difficult. Yeah. It's very hard. You've got doctors all over the world. You've got to maintain that level of quality and service and relationship. So
yeah, and there's a couple of takeaways there, just in terms of that curiosity. I don't believe that anyone's the finished product ever. I think you should always be eager to learn. I think you should always be, not just because you have the most experience in the room doesn't mean that you have the most knowledge. I think you should always be asking those questions, and particularly asking those questions of our doctors too. And, a lot of the time, questions we might phrase like, hopefully you don't mind me asking this question, but this is going to help me help future doctors make the move across too. So all that information is super, super powerful for us. And, when it comes to learning as a team, I've mentioned it before, we're all fully remote. So I'm in Wicklow, Richard's in Clare. We've got, team members in Waterford and Cork and, all parts of the country, in Meath and Louth and all over. But we're constantly engaged with each other. We've, team meetings for 15 minutes every single morning to find out, what are people doing. We call it the 2 for 2. What your 2 things from yesterday and 2 of your goals for today, and just keeps us incredibly focused on what we're doing and keeps us very accountable, I guess. And on a Friday, we have a longer hour-long team session where it's more of a learning session. What did you learn this week? Could you share with the group that you've learned? And we found it's challenging having a team remotely.
Get together also.
We do probably once every 6 months. As sub teams, we get together more regularly than that. But genuinely, when we see each other in person once every 6 months, we feel like we know each other so much more, and we probably, make more of an effort to know each other beyond the job, because we are all working remotely. But, it doesn't suit everyone, and we totally get that. And we're very clear when we're looking for new people to join us. You can, the obvious benefits of working from home, but does it actually suit you? And we kind of talk people out of taking us up on an offer if it's not right for them, because the job needs to be right for them as much as they need to be right for us too.
So in terms of, when I look at the interaction you have with your doctors as well, be that online or be it on pods or whatever, you seem genuinely to A, know them really, really well, and B, actually care. I just wonder, so obviously you're involved in the process of them relocating. Do you meet them when they land as well? Do you have that conversation? How does that work? Do you get to
I guess when it comes to the whole relationship with our doctors, it's a pretty long process. The minimum process we're talking about is probably 6 months from first interaction to getting them here. In a lot of cases, just speaking to Shirley, one of the other recruiters on the team earlier today, we did a roadshow in South Africa about a year and a half ago. Just this week, she has placed someone from that roadshow. So our first interaction with that person was well over 18 months ago. And now they're in place. They're only about to come into the country and start working in the next couple of weeks. So you're bound to build a pretty strong relationship with someone like that over that period of time. I think that's probably our strong point. It's getting to know them as individuals.
I suppose you can't do that well, you can, but it's much more difficult to do that when you're just doing temp, because you're rolling one off, and that's the benefit of how you do it. And so I'm loving this, and I'm getting hopefully what's coming across is how you do things in the DNA of the business. So in terms of the strategic side of it, the decision making, you've got the 2-on-2, you've got the Friday meet. Who makes those decisions? Is that Richard? Is that you? Is it as a team? How does it work?
It's the two of us together. We meet up as often as we can as well. And despite being on the opposite sides of the country, we try and meet up in person to just, deep dive into how things are looking. How can we streamline things a bit more? How can we cut out unnecessary meetings as much as possible? So I'm just making things for our team not easy, but I want to give them as many opportunities to do as well as they possibly can. So whatever, within reason, budget-wise, whatever activities we can do to give them a stream of doctors to place, we're well up for it. So, I mentioned we did a roadshow in South Africa, in 2023. We have another one coming up now in March 2025, and we want to do it even bigger this time around. We want to give value to our doctors, want to see them in the flesh. One interesting that came up from our last session out there, I think he's a pathologist out in Cape Town, and he said, I've been following your stuff online on the Facebook groups and on LinkedIn for a number of years, and I wanted to come to your session to actually, see for real, is this actually legitimate, or is this a scam? It may sound a bit bizarre to those working in recruitment within Europe, but the characters that we're dealing with and the places that they're coming from, scams are a real daily thing, and people are very conscious of that and are wondering, is this too good to be true? This opportunity to leave my country, where there's, as much as they love their country, there's troubles to it and there's reasons why they want to get out. And if someone's coming to them with this golden ticket, should they really be taking them up on that
Trust,
opportunity?
isn't it? They've got to trust you, or else it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So how do you define roles? How does it work in terms of what he's doing? How involved is he in terms of how do you define what you're both doing?
Yeah. So on my side, I'm more, so I sort of coach the sub teams of recruiters and resourcers, and then Richard's more on the back end of things. So I still have my own billing numbers, me personally, within my own specialty. So each of us actually split into, we call them pods, or sub teams, and within each pod, a recruiter looks after one or two specialties. So mine are emergency medicine and pediatrics. So we found, getting our niche within the niche, we become not experts, because I don't believe in that, but close to it, because we get to know the network, we get to know the hospitals, we get to know the need within those hospitals, and we get to know our doctors too, and it just gives us a heck of a lot more credibility. And that's the way we've grown. So we have teams of recruiters and then resourcers that are purely 180. They're looking to find doctors, and then they feed them into the recruiters. But the recruiters are also still doing their own resourcing efforts. So that's in essence my role. And then, and as I said, Richard has more a finer eye for the systems, the ATS, the reporting systems, and also some of the more sort of strategic things.
What about client relationships? Have you constantly looking at developing new relationships?
Yeah, again, that a large part of that falls down on our recruiters and myself too. So we only just the last number of weeks, every Wednesday, a bunch of the recruiters have been going out in person, door stopping hospitals, because get this, medical manpower or HR, if we tried to arrange a meeting, they would tell you they're busy. So we rock up unannounced and just, come in with a box of chocolates and pens. You'd be surprised how quickly pens will be snatched off us, and how
everyone likes a pen. Everyone needs a pen.
Everyone loves a pen. And the stuff you get from that in-person surprise interaction is invaluable too. And we take then that opportunity to just get visibility, understand what's happening in the market, understand the varied needs depending on the hospital and department, and then also meet our ambassadors that I mentioned earlier on, meet them in person, get to see what the department looks like. And this goes back to that credibility piece. We're talking to a doctor the following day and say, we're just speaking to so-and-so, they just showed us their department and gave us a better idea of what the whole setup is like, as opposed to, I'm your bog standard recruiter and I'm here just behind a laptop all day, firing out CVs, hoping for the best. We're actually getting into the departments. I've been to every hospital in the country, Paul. I know what they look like. And that just adds that bit more weight to our efforts.
So talk me through the process. So you're managing director of the business, you're a shareholder in the business. How does that conversation come about? How's that initiated? And when did that happen?
Yeah. So I'll edit that a bit. Richard is the managing director. I'm one of the directors. I'm director of medical recruitment. So I guess what that sort of came about, this was just maybe Richard's generosity to a degree, or felt I was up to it at the time. It was probably about 2.5 years ago, and I'll be honest, I did get a very strong sense of imposter syndrome. Like, what is he even thinking about here? But then going into it, like, I was doing the majority of it anyway. I was involved. It didn't change a huge amount in how our relationship was, and how we operated, but it did change my mentality in terms of how, important it is for us to think much more longer term, as opposed to we operate in sort of 6-month sales cycles. So it was at that time more thinking just, the next 6-month sales cycle ahead. Whereas, since that, promotion, think a lot more longer term. So, how would this particular meeting have an impact on this, or what particular event should we be looking at in a year's time, let's say, or what should the team be looking like in a year or 2 years time? So it did certainly give me a sharper focus on the medium to longer term.
So I suppose it's elevated you in terms of where you are and just your knowledge of a business and how it works and how to structure that and where it needs to go. That must be really invaluable. That
yeah, and look, I'll admit that I'm still learning so much about it, about the ins and outs of it. Richard certainly has a better eye for, as I said, for the systems piece and the numbers side of things. But no, I think I'm quite lucky, and that we make a good pairing and we play to each other's strengths. And again, like I said, very fortunate that I've that opportunity to take that step.
So what's the future hold then? What's things looking like for MatchMedics? Great name, by the way. I love that name. What's the future looking like for both yourself and the business?
Yeah. So we're, I still believe, there's a lot to be done here in Ireland. I still believe there's hospitals we're not either working with regularly or working with enough. The global need for doctors is ever growing. I'm sure, AI and technology is going to play its part in that, but it's still going to, partly come down to those individuals. There's a lot more players, privately coming to the market, in terms of healthcare provision. So to be able to build more, sort of partnership, based relationships as opposed to, spot placements here or there. That's certainly something we're looking to work towards. And, we're looking for other territories too. If, the UK is an exciting space, if we find our particular niche there, if there's other locations that might be on our radar, we're always keeping an open mind to that. So, that's where we're headed, I think. And that's, we have to be prepared to look beyond Ireland at some point.
It's brilliant because one thing you've done really successfully is nailed the remote model. And that enables you to do that and just
Yeah.
expand wherever you, as once you've got your niche and once you've got your strategy and your structure in place, you can just roll that out. I think that's really clever. And self, you're obviously very bought into this journey, because you've got three kids,
Two little girls. Yeah.
two girls, same as me, two girls. Sorry, apologies. And so obviously very much a family man. So if it was to go outside of Ireland, you think you'd be happy to look at that, or would you quite set on where you are?
Location wise, yeah, like working from home, I think it's probably a good thing for the wider team. Working from home suits me very well. And it just gives me that freedom to be present as much as I possibly can. Of course, there's conferences, there's events that we need to go to, there's hospital visits, there's road trips around the country that play their part too. But that flexibility, as you say, does allow us to grow. Genuinely, we wouldn't be able to have been able to recruit half of our current team if we weren't remote. So that just shows you there's real benefits to it. But we also be mindful it doesn't suit everyone, and we totally respect that. But what we're finding, and I know no doubt, and seeing people chat about it on LinkedIn, across the UK, fully remote seems to be a thing of the past. Here in Ireland, it's kind of going that direction too. So I'd like to hear that, because that's, a strong selling point for us too, to get the right people on board.
Absolutely.
We'll give you the flexibility you need once the job is done. You know better than I, there's no hiding behind the numbers. So once you deliver, I do not care what hours you do.
It's phenomenal. And that's it. And I've spoken to a few people like that have grown remotely across continent, and that is exactly that. We'll give you the tools you need to do the job. You deliver them. If you choose to work extra hours or you don't, you do what you need to do, support you to do that. Well, thank you for it. We appreciate it. And then we go again on another cycle. And that's when people talk about flexibility, I think they confuse remote and hybrid with actual flexibility. And so offering people that is massive. And I know they're saying that fully remote model is going to stop. In a lot of ways it will, but I think in certain roles, you can still do it, and recruitment is one of those. As long as you can manage that mentally yourself, there's no reason why you can't keep doing it, as long as the structure is in place with the business to support you. So I think
100%.
it's brilliant.
And look, I appreciate those coming into the space, fresh grads. I can see how that's challenging. You're not hearing what someone even 2 years more experienced than you is doing on the phone. And that's why as sub teams, we try our best to meet up every even 3 months to just see each other again and get a sense of how things are going, hear each other on the phone, brainstorm ideas together, and then the wider piece as a whole team every 6 months to share not just our wins, but also share different learnings and different things that perhaps didn't go our way, and try and learn as a team together to do it better next time.
Well, I think you as a person, you're very humble. You're not, I mean, it's a bit like myself. You're not that typical recruiter. You are very genuine, very relationship, very empathetic, and genuinely want the best for people. And so I can see why it can work in that model, because you're giving people exactly what they need.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you a question in a minute. I always ask a question to finish off, and I'm sorry I might be catching you a bit unaware. Well, I think for me, what hopefully will come across to the listeners is, there's this thought process that to do well, you have to really start on your own, and you are living proof that you can be exceptionally successful without being, whilst maintaining your core values, while being true to yourself, sticking to your path, doing a great job, learning as you go, being humble, and having a partnership and being an owner and the director in a business that you didn't necessarily found. I think that journey is inspiring. And on that note, I'm going to ask you a question. So what's one thing you wish you'd have known early in your career?
I think just, sticking it out. I think, I don't know if, a lot is said about it, but I don't know if enough weight is put on that resilience piece. One of the, dare I say, thought leaders within the recruitment space, Greg Savage, I follow all of his stuff, and he's big on not expecting immediate results, and I think that was the mentality I had in my first agency job. Oh yeah, I'm just looking for a quick win here just to see what the process is all like. And I think someone coming into recruitment now, you need to see it as a longer term game. I get that. Starting out, you're thinking, you know what, I need to impress, I need to learn, I need to build. But really it's the learning. And I think maybe some agencies don't give people that bandwidth to learn, or opportunity to just say, you know, the expectation initially isn't massive in terms of billings. It is, we want you to learn and understand the process, and everything else will flow from there. Back to your point about sort of being human, we understand our people, you know, our team as well as our doctors, but most of our doctors, we understand them because they're the names behind those placements. They're the names behind those numbers. And if you care about them, the numbers will follow. And I stand by that from the day I started with MatchMedics. It's the individual there. If you care about them, everything else will fall into place.
Okay, and that's phenomenal. I really, really enjoyed this conversation as I know I would. And I'm pretty sure that people will get value regardless of what industry you're in, regardless of whatever profession or niche you're recruiting for. I think your journey is inspiring, and, you know, we're going to be talking anyway, but I genuinely wish you all the best now for the rest of 24 and into 25. And hopefully we'll be seeing you early next year in person as well. So we'll get together.
Yeah. Great stuff. Thanks for having me on, Paul.
No problem at all. Speak to you soon. Cheers, Graham. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to the show. I really hope you enjoyed it. First and foremost, we always try to add value to our audience, be it a founder looking to scale or a leader looking to progress up the chain in the agency world. And if we can do this in a way that is easy to watch and entertaining, then for me, that is job done. Once again, thanks for listening, and until next time.